So I woke up today thinking, what am I gonna make for the YouTube channel? But I also have some other stuff I actually need to do today. So I am admittedly a little low on ideas. I was thinking of maybe just posting something that I'd already made, but I figured like in these beginning days of the channel, if I just post stuff that most of my audience has already seen from me, that's kind of pointless. So I'll try to make something new today. So some potential ideas for this video are going to be how I make beats, just a cappella style. Another one is how to like approach musicality, like phrasing. Sounds a little pretentious. The other one was a sort of introduction to whistling techniques and like the random things you can do with that. And the last idea was to maybe talk about my trumpet, more of my trumpet experience or like music school, stuff like that. Anyway, from the title of the video, you can probably guess that I chose the whistling techniques. So there's a few essential elements to whistling technique, I think. I honestly don't know that much about it. I just kind of practiced it as I grew up, and I eventually just learned it. But I don't think I have a very official designation to, qualify me to teach about this or anything. It's more that I've picked some stuff up along the way. I feel I can share some of it. Is this interesting to anyone? Maybe not. Maybe not. But I do have some audience that is made up of like friends of mine who also do whistling, so maybe they'll be interested in this. Okay, so I think the first thing to go over is that there are different sort of resonating chambers that you can get with whistling that depend on the register you're in. So for the normal whistling that I think most people would do is just kind of like you pucker and you blow and you make a resonance. But this only works within a certain range. So let's see. So maybe like a D up to maybe like a C or something like that. Sorry if my pitch isn't great. Not quite covering a whole like 2 octaves span. So it's limited. There are different oral shapes that we can transition to that allow us to get a further range, either higher or lower. So in the higher direction, we can switch around here. You can hear it, right? It sort of clicks to another level. Like that. On a very technical note, I think this is accomplished when the bottom of the tongue sort of lifts. Like that. I don't know why I'm trying to explain it like this. This is very haphazard. I might do a more organized video on this at some point. Once you're in this upper register, for me at least, that's about as high as I can go. I think there are actually techniques to do it even better. I just haven't really learned them very well yet, so I'm still trying to figure that out. Now, as for the low notes, there's also a different sort of oral cavity shape. So after that lowest one, and so this is actually also accomplished. You have to sort of, when you go low enough in your middle register, your tongue is still kind of raised in the mouth. And as you drop into this new cavity, it completely flattens. And it's just a very large open, sort of hollow. And so that's how I can go as low as possible with my own range. Now, because there are all these different cavities, that does mean that when you transition between ranges, you need to really practice making that clean. But it also means that the transition, once you practice it, will be really clean sounding. Like it'll sound like a woodwind instrument to some degree. It's hard, but you can hear that when you do this sort of rapid cavity shift, you get that very clean sound instead of like this fast kind of glissando thing. We don't want that. We just want an instant change of notes. Or at least I want an instant change of notes. So when you're doing wide intervals, that's definitely an easy way to just make it instant. So I mean, it's not clean, but if I practiced it, maybe it would be. Right. There's another sort of technique, which is called warbling. I think that's how you say it. And it's where you can kind of do this, like, this clean transition in a much closer range. So, like trilling. And the way it's accomplished, the way I do it at least, is kind of like this cheek thing. So something you can try. You hold out a note. Then as you're holding it, I want to take the side of the tongue on one side, and press it up against the cheek like that as you're holding the note. So, and you'll notice that sound. All I'm doing is, sorry, this is weird. Practice doing that just on a single movement and from the side to the middle. And then when you get comfortable with that, try going back and forth. So you can do it on a single note, or try to make a transition and combine it with that. And you can just do all sorts of stuff. I'll just go over another one or two techniques. Another very important one with whistling is sort of articulation. Now, I play trumpet too, so the normal way I'd articulate there is just literally separating the air column with a tongue flap. So, you know, that's supposed to be my tongue, by the way. This just means that the air very steadily flows out and the tongue doesn't really interrupt it. But we can't really use tongue when whistling. Okay, you can use the tongue when whistling, but it's not a normal sound. It's sort of like, it works, but it's not ideal, and it usually works better in certain contexts, not very often. So what's the way that we can make a nice, clear articulation? Well, this is going to sound like sort of sacrilege to an actual brass player, but you got to use your throat. Anyone who plays a brass instrument knows that you're not supposed to close off your throat, really, for like any reason, unless it's called for in the music. It's seen as building tension, and it makes sense. I mean, you want to have a very clear airflow. If all you're going to do to separate notes is use your tongue, you don't need to constrict your air with your throat or with anything else, to be honest. But when it comes to whistling, since tongue is not the ideal way to separate the notes, we need to treat the sort of opening and closing of this airflow in our throat as a form of articulation. So we don't want it to be catching for a long time, and we want it to still be very like smooth and flowing. The long tone beneath this articulation needs to remain steady. So maybe practice doing it very connected like that. So often I will actually combine a little bit of this throat articulation with a light, really light tonguing articulation, mix that in with a bit of the warbling and the register changes, and you get some very clean sounding whistling. Let's just take something as an example, a very wide arpeggio, so covering most of our register. I'm going to try to do it first without any of these techniques if I can. I kind of switched cavities there, but whatever. Let's add in the cavity change and some of the warbling to make the transition cleaner. Right, now let's try to add in some of the throat articulation. And now maybe trying it with the tongue articulation. And I think once we get comfortable with kind of using both of these, you can speed it up and just kind of improvise your way through things. All right, that's enough for today. I'm not going to end with any musical performance because this whole thing was kind of about that. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.